Hey guys. Hello, hello, hello. We're actually at 0 tables right now, but I wanted to show you this because statistics are cool. And Hold'em Manager can do this for us. This shows the blue line is voluntarily put money into the pot, the orange line is raised pre-flop, and the red line is 3-bet pre-flop. And this is showing it by stakes. So here it is at 1 cent, 2 cent, 2 cent, 5 cent, 5 cent, 10 cent, and 10 cent, 25 cent. Now, all of these samples are very low. There are probably only a couple hundred hands here. I don't know, I just refreshed. But you can see that at 1 cent, 2 cent I was playing much looser. And then I've been tightening up as I've advanced through the stakes. This will continue to tighten as I get into like 1-2 and 2-4. The reason quite simply being that there are more profitable spots at 1 cent, 2 cent than there are later on. I tend to end up, somewhere in the 14-12 to 17-15 range, depending on what the table looks like exactly. I don't... you'll see some players who are 13-11 and some players who are 18-16, and either player could be winning a good amount. I don't think that 5% difference in VPIP necessarily does a huge lot to your win rate. I think the bigger deal is it informs how you play post-flop. If you're a 13-11 player, you're going to have to play post-flop differently from if you're an 18-16 player. And assuming you're playing the right way for your style post-flop, it's not necessarily changing your win rate all that much to loosen up or tighten up. Know nothing about this player, which makes calling a little bit worse. He's probably a terrible player, because I have 0 hands on him and I've actually played quite a bit of 10 cent, 25 cent at this point, and also because he's got this weird stack size. But yeah, him being a terrible player should mean that he'll call out a position a decent amount, and then we can make lots of money. And it also should mean that if I call his bet, I'm sort of going to be guessing. Just the entire situation sort of implies that were I to call, knowing nothing about this player, would end up guessing. I think just betting there. There are people who I have heard arguing for checking back in situations like this. And if I had Ace-7 and the board was Ace-7 deuce rainbow, sorry, not Ace-7, Ace-8, just a pair of aces with a weak kicker, in that situation I'd be much more inclined to check back. But here there's a ton of value to be gunning out of flush draws, like Queen-10 may peel me, King-Queen may peel me. I'm assuming the guy's very poor at poker, so he can play those hands and play them the way I'm describing. Even someone like King-Jack could call once or twice. And checking behind risks more on this board because there are plenty of hands which have 4 outs at least to overtake me. So I think it's a good bet both for value and just to win the pot. When we win the pot, I don't think that's a bad result at all. I guess if I'm going to say something like that, I should say I do think it can be a bad thing for your opponent to just fold and you win the pot, which is, not necessarily obvious. But if you have the absolute nuts and there's 50 cents in the pot so far with $500 behind, you don't really want to get your opponent to fold there. Let's talk about the heads-up display, because after I limp behind here, calling with 8s in position would be, you know, middling to good at best. But after I limp behind, if I then call, my range is very weak, because I would raise against this guy with so many hands. This guy may not necessarily pick up on that or anything, but Jack-9 suited against deep stacks, I think, would be a decent hand to squeeze with here. If I get called, it makes some pretty good stuff on flops. Sorry if that stuff was way too loud. Hopefully now it will be better. Yeah. If I get called, Jack-9 suited is playable post-flop, but the hope is, of course, not to get called. This guy only has $5, though, and is probably calling with any 2 cards, so pretty silly to try to get a bunch of money in against him with Jack-high. So the heads-up display, as I have it set up, is name, and the color informs on stack size. So I think like 45 big blinds or less is red, anywhere from 45 to 95 is pink, because that's where the recreational players are most often going to be. Way to be dealt aces. Around 95 to 110 is yellow, which is like a normal regular stack, and then above 110 is green, which is a regular who's running well. This guy looks close enough to a regular that I can tag him. A regular who's running well, or a fish who's running extremely well. Fish actually get into pots where stacks get exchanged more often than regulars, so it's not that uncommon for fish to run their stack up. Yeah, that was the first part. The second thing on that line is hands, so how many hands I've seen of him playing. The next line is the player vitals. So we have VPIP, PFR, pre-flop raise, and 3-bet. So that's pre-flop 3-bet and fold to 3-bet. What percentage of the time they fold to a 3-bet after being the pre-flop raiser. And that's all color-coded, with red tending to be much tighter, green tending to be much looser, orange being, you know, sort of in the range I think is normal, yellow being a little bit on the more aggressive side, and gray being like this guy doesn't even bother to sit at the table while he's logged in playing. As you can see here, after 4 hands I'm 0, 0, 0, and everything's gray. Yeah, so that's that line. The next 2 lines are all steal statistics. I think the steal statistics are very, very important. I think the most common situation in a low limit hold'em where you should be putting one into the pot is in situations where, like, the first 5 guys have folded and you're looking to win the blinds. And similarly, when you're in the blinds and someone's stealing at you, I think that's a very common situation. So these statistics are steal from cutoff, steal from button, and steal from small blind. And they're coded the same way as the statistics up here were. In fact, all of the remaining statistics are coded that way. Gray, red, orange, yellow, green. No reason not to bet. No way he folds jack here. Eventually he will, but certainly not on the flop. I have to work out how to make it look like I'm bluffing him for some reason. which is really hard when all you have is how long it takes you to make the bet and how big the bet is. Actually, honestly, I maybe don't have to even worry about presenting it that way to this guy. Maybe he just presses the call button. I'm gonna actually go for another 80 cents. He can have an ace here too, by the way. Well, that was unfortunate, but totally fine. And I think this play is pretty good. I don't think there's much merit to raising. Here we actually had two people post in the same hand, so I'm going to raise it up. That's another 50 cents on the table just for free as far as I'm concerned. When this guy posts and calls, you expect his hand to be very weak. Yeah, you know, I think in a more aggressive situation, check raising there would be pretty normal, but 10 cent, 25 cent, no history with me at all. I have a gut shot here and an over, plus I have ace high. I'm betting small because there's so little money and the stacks of the people behind me. And after two calls, I'm going to consider myself pretty much done with the hand. I expect this guy to jam, always. Here, he should jam. Please jam. I wanted to steal with 7-3 suited, but yeah. Like, this bet makes no sense, just go all in. If this guy has like clubs or something, you're just failing to win $3.45 by not jamming all in there. He's gonna like tank a whole lot before he puts the rest of the money in because he wants to make it look like he's weak. Which is just like, he doesn't understand the situation. That's funny. The situation there is there's $3 left and like a $16 pot, and there's zero chance that either of them can ever fold because they're getting too good odds. Maybe he was thinking about not jamming with queens, I don't know. We're gonna open King Jack offsuit here. I've folded it in the hijack before in videos. I just rewatched my last one. Saw myself do it. But here, this guy looks like he may be decent fish. This guy looks like a fish. And, you know, these guys I have 9 and 8 hands on, but they haven't done anything yet, so they're probably tightish regulars. We should speak about statistics. I left the 5 cent, 10 cent video with a note on, like, Kahneman's study on how people only care about, yeah, whatever. You should read Kahneman instead of listening to me poorly summarize Kahneman. It was my friend Ruben who gave me this example, which I think is really cool, which is that if you're in the medical community and you're doing studies on, say, astrology predicting someone's health, and you find results which, like, would only happen due to chance 5% of the time you did the study, the implication there is that the other... okay. The implication there is not actually that the other 95% of the time it's... God. Can we do over? Anyway, the point is, if you're doing these studies on astrology, every single time that you get a positive, it's going to be false. It's because that was the 1 in 20 times that you got the positive by chance. It's not because astrology is actually predicting someone's medical health, because astrology is, it doesn't do that. I feel like I'm more tolerant of the idea that astrology could have some merit somewhere than a lot of poker players are going to be, but I'm going to go ahead and say that it's not going to predict your medical health. And so when you're looking at something and working out, okay, there's only a 5% chance that this could happen due to chance. If I'm looking at poker players, 1 out of 20 times, like, I'm going to see something like that, and it's going to be a false positive. So I need to know how likely it is that that's happening because it's actually true as well. Say I see someone who seems to be re-stealing 100% of the time against my opens. I need to ask myself not just, like, is it likely that this would happen statistically? And then say, no, it's not. In that case, he must just be re-stealing 100% of the time against me. That's completely flawed. I need to inform my knowledge about how likely it is that he's actually re-stealing 100% of the time against me with how statistically likely it is for me to get those statistical results. So if I see someone re-stealing 100% of the time against me, and I see he's like 16 tabling, 25 no limit, regular, breaking even, I'm going to start with the assumption that there's maybe a 1 in 1,000 chance that he has actually decided to 3-bet against my re-steals every time. And then when I get a false positive that's only 5% likely to happen, if he's not re-stealing 100% of the time, I have to inform the original probability that there was a 1 in 1,000 chance that he was doing that. And you can throw that into Bayes' formula and get the actual chance that he is now based on those assumptions, but it's not going to be 100, and it's not going to be, it's not even going to be 5%. So when you see someone doing something that's really unusual and you want to justify making a play due to it, probably don't. Here, you could check and let him bluff with missed hearts, but I don't trust this guy to bluff with missed hearts, and it's really easy for him to have a king. So I think that would be a pretty large mistake. And I'm going to bet quite big, because I don't think he'll fold a king. He'll, say that I missed a heart draw or something. Yeah, I know. Why, everybody knows, dude. You don't have to show us. So, yeah, that was fun. I could have bet bigger. Probably cost myself. Yeah. I didn't realize until, I got to the river, probably, that this guy was just terrible at poker. Because I only had 3 hands on him. But then, okay, so when I have 3 hands on someone, I sort of just ignore what the statistics say. But when I have 3 hands on someone and they have 100% VPEP, no raise, and it's the 4th hand and they're in the pot again, you're already at a point where you can draw some pretty significant conclusions. So I should have bet $4.75 here. That gives us a $15 pot on the river. And that's honestly enough that I could jam, but I don't think I'd recommend jamming. Jamming just looks scary. I think I'd bet $13.80 on the river into a $15 pot. Yeah, bets and no limit have a very, very strong feedback effect on how much money you win on later streets. So the easiest way to win a big pot against a fish when you have a stronger showdown hand than them and they're calling is to, make the flop bet a bit bigger, and it just snowballs from there. Or hell, even make the pre-flop raise bigger. If you're on the button and you have 2 fish in the big blind, raise it up a bit larger. At least when you have a hand that's likely to make a better showdown hand than their hand. The worst hand in poker is not like 7-deuce offsuit or anything. Okay, yes it is. But for the purposes of this example, the worst hand in poker is the second best hand. In any given situation. The hand that you're going to lose the most money with is going to be the second best hand. If you have kings, very good hand. But if someone else at the table has aces, kings is the worst hand you can possibly have. And this is sort of a worthless thing to say at first glance, of course. But it's very important to realize when playing against mediocre to terrible players who are playing hands like king-jack offsuit or ace-6 offsuit, because those are hands which are very good at making the second best hand, and those players are not really going to think about it, and they're probably going to put in way too much money with that second best hand. So, if you're playing against someone who's likely to play, this guy played king-6 suited, you need to be willing to play king-queen, and when you hit that king, bet a whole lot of money. And you shall be rewarded with riches. Good rants so far, I feel like. Did you guys get the astrology stuff? It would be sort of cool to live stream these so I could get chat feedback while I was going. Maybe I should set that up. There's this significant problem with live streaming poker in that other people can see your cards. And, as long as none of the 36 people that I'm playing against, 32 people? What is 8 times 4, guys? 32. As long as none of the 32 people I'm playing against are watching the live stream, that's no huge deal, but it's pretty easy to, have someone know exactly what cards you have. I'm not aware of any people who live stream poker to a public audience, and, if there were any, probably I wouldn't know about them because they wouldn't want to advertise it very well. Or else they might become pretty easy to beat. What I could do is a live stream with a 2-minute delay or something, which wouldn't be as good for asking questions of people because their response would be very slow, but if my microphone wasn't working or something, I'd only lose 2 minutes of my life before somebody told me. And you could give some feedback. You could be like, hey, in that hand you played 2 minutes ago, what do you think about doing this? And then I could real quick go and pull up the replay. That seems like a cool idea. I might actually do that. I don't know. Think about it. We're against 2 mega fish. Well, mega fish and mega fish. We have third pair with very little chance to improve. It's a weird spot. I think the best thing to do is just check and sort of expect to get to showdown a lot. I'm gonna fold ace high here. No. It's funny, I don't think ace jack is good enough here. Weirdly. It's sort of crazy. He's playing 55, 15 or something. My hand's sort of invulnerable, so I don't feel like I have to bet up here. The problems are, he's short, so I don't have too much upside from calling. There are a lot of people behind me, and I bet for value against pair of 8s, pair of 7s, I don't know, queen jack might call me. These guys. Damn it. I have to be good here 1 in 6 times. I don't think I am. So, simple as that. When a super passive guy, you know, does that, probably he was slow playing something absurd until the river, because he doesn't know how to bet. Here, it's a less than pot 3-bet. I'm in position. Probably I'm not doing so great against him with queens. Guess it's pretty hard to say. I don't think there's much reason to call here. If I were to look, okay, even against a very good player who's very aggressive, there isn't much reason to call here. And if I would look at how my equity is against his range as a whole, I probably have, you know, I need 40% or something for that to be a plus EV call just looking at the flop. And I probably have 40% equity against him. I quite likely have more than 50. But the problem is, with queens, he's going to keep value betting with an ace all the time. And he also has lots of bluffs he can keep betting with on this board. Clubs, Jack 10 could pretty easily turn a good card for itself and keep betting. Suited hearts could easily turn a good card and keep betting. So if I call with queens there, I'm giving money to aces, obviously, and I'm not necessarily winning the pot against the hands that I beat. Just makes it not a super good spot to call. I left Hold'em Manager on overnight, and so the stats I have on each table are from the session that I'm currently playing, but if I leave it on, it doesn't ever refresh. So I was playing on this table and this table last night, it looks like, and then I've sat back at them and I'm getting stats from those sessions again. It's already been half an hour? Holy crap. Time flies with you guys. I don't feel like we're playing very many hands. It's unfortunate. Are these tables just super slow? I don't know. Maybe we'll go a little bit over time. Actually, I think what I'll do is I'll move straight from this into a like 16 tabling session just on my own. And I'll leave the video running while I'm starting that up so you can get an idea of what it looks like to 16 table without feeling like you know, wasted your life watching 40 minutes of me 16 tabling and you couldn't follow a single thing that was happening. Just might be interesting to see how it looks. I'm going to go ahead and fold 8s here, I think. Yeah. Again, he's making it less than pot, but I don't really think he's doing this in any way that makes calling with 8s good. For calling with 8s to be good, he sort of has to have either aces or kings and be stacking off every time I hit, or he has to be extremely weak. What normal people are is like, even if there are aces, kings, and ace-king, they are not strong enough for you to make all your money back when you hit a set, but not weak enough for you to win when you miss your set. And so calling with pocket pairs is not so great. I think we can fish tag that guy. This guy looks like, yeah, they're all from Russia. I don't know why Russians don't like spend their time learning to play poker well. Instead, you just get a ton of 40 big blind Russians. Is this guy from Russia? Spain. Russia. Belarus. It's a very international pastime. Lithuania. Hey, New Zealand, Turkey, Russia, Chamonix, Spain, Poland. Interesting that all these Europeans are online because it's 2 a.m. over there right now, as far as I know. I guess it is the weekend. Probably the best time to play poker right now would be like 6 to 9 p.m. in Europe. And I know that Europe is not just one time zone, guys. Bear with me, we're generalizing. Man, it would be embarrassing if the entirety of Europe were somehow one time zone, but I'm pretty sure it's not. And especially if I'm counting Russia as part of Europe, don't think that's the case. How many time zones are there in Europe? Trivia question. This is a good hand to 4-bet bluff with if you're in a 4-bet bluff with anything. I'm going to risk 325 here to win 325, so it has to work half the time. I think it does. There's a decent chance he does that and then folds to a c-bet, which is awesome, because he's probably doing this with, like, I don't know, queens or something. Oh, I hope not. And okay, I'm going to bet one more time to make sure he folds jacks. Cool. He just gave away, like, just hundreds of dollars. Okay. This is a really interesting and pretty vast hand. And I feel like we've like sort of set the groundwork to be able to talk about it, so that's really cool. I'm opening the button very wide. He's 3-betting out of the small blind, probably quite wide himself. I don't know much about him. I have 30 hands on him. The reason that I made the play was that I've seen him 3-bet quite a lot already. You see his 3-bet is at 18.2% over 11 samples, so that's, you know, only actually 2 out of 11 times, but both out of the blinds. It supports a completely reasonable hypothesis, which is that he's a guy like Lucky Gold who's playing, you know, 12-11, 3-betting a bunch. Whoops. It actually doesn't. I take that back because he's 100 big blinds deep. But it supports the hypothesis that he's, you know, a tight player with a wide 3-bet range, which is what a normal, goodish player is going to look like. So I'm pretty comfortable making that assumption even with little statistical data. In fact, it's sort of the assumption I would make with no statistical data. So the fact that the data supports it just, you know, pushes it a little bit further. Now, in this spot, I have a terrible hand. Don't get me wrong, King 7 offsuit, gross. There are not many situations in which I would have put any money in the pot with this hand. I'm going to bet for value with ace high. But in this particular situation, obviously I have, and now that we're here, I actually have a pretty sweet spot where I can use my king high. I'm going to check and expect to win a lot. Nope. Alright, no problem. That also happens sometimes. I can use my king high as a blocker because my king high blocks pocket kings, ace king, and it's possible that it's actually a better blocker than an ace in this situation. A lot of people are 3-betting for bluffs with aces because it makes sense, because it blocks my strong hands. But if they're 3-betting as a bluff with a bunch of aces, then when I have an ace blocker, I'm blocking the times that they're bluffing as well as the times that they actually have aces or ace king. So that's no longer as good. The king blocker can often be considerably better than the ace blocker in a situation like this. I don't know if he does bluff with aces or what, so I can't really comment on if that's true exactly here, but as a general rule. So I go ahead and make a 4-bet, and my 4-bet is tiny. I'm almost just min-raising against his bet. I'm giving myself odds to profit half the time. I'm giving myself odds that I profit if it works. Okay, not half the time, but over half the time I'll profit. And exactly half the time I'll break even. They don't take rake out of pots that don't see a flop, by the way, so I will actually exactly break even. Now, a lot of people would be uncomfortable with making a 4-bet this small, and a lot of people seeing a 4-bet this small would think, oh, it's bad. I can just call. He's giving me these amazing odds. But the hand doesn't end at the end of pre-flop. And what we saw is that he does call. He called quite quickly, too. And he's probably got some hand like jacks. Which I think is a very, very easy 5-bet, by the way, if he has jacks. But whatever, he calls. Maybe he has like 10s, maybe he has 9s, I don't know. He could have 7s, he could have like 10-8 suited, for all I know. And just figure, oh, the price is so good, I have to call. The problem, though, is that he is taking a line which just lets me manhandle him with no hand. So, after he calls, we're on the flop, there's 825 in the pot. Why does the replayer not work properly? But I'm pretty sure that's 825 in the pot. Yep. And I can make, like, the most profitable bluffs in the world post-flop here. Because with 825 in the pot and 25 or something dollars behind, I do not need to bet big to get all the money in. And if I had aces here, I would not be betting big on each street. So I just bet 360 here, and I expect him to fold a ton. There's all sorts of stuff, like maybe he peeled with ace-queen suited or something, and in this situation he just has to fold. I expect this bluff to be just extremely, extremely, extremely profitable on the flop. Now, when he calls, I don't think there's much chance, if any, that he has aces or kings here, because he gave off a huge timing tell pre-flop when he almost instantly called. He didn't even consider re-raising. So his hand here, pocket 4s, pocket 3s, pocket 8s are unlikely, because those are not the sort of hands that are super normal to 3-bet out of the blinds, I don't think. I know some people do it, but I'd say they're only, half as common as they would usually be, and if he can have those hands, it's actually a pretty good thing for me. It means he can also have 5s, 6s, 7s, 9s, 10s. All hands which, didn't make a super strong set sort of stuff, in which he could conceivably peel a flop with. The hands I think he has here are... I'm gonna fold my small blind against a giant fish, because I had 6-4 offsuit. The hands I think he can most conceivably have here are like jacks, 10s, 9s, queens. I did say queens. I think that's possible. He'll probably think longer before just calling pre-flop, so you can discount queens a bit. And maybe even something like ace-8 suited. The point, though, is that none of these hands are good hands. So I think I have a pretty easy double barrel. And it's a spot where, like, as post-flop continues, my hand is, still king high, and it gets worse and worse for me, because I'm probably not winning showdown with king high. But it's sort of like the longer he continues in the hand, the more money I actually make. Because I think it's really, really unlikely that he ever has a hand that gets to showdown against me here. He has to have something that will check call off its entire stack, and after he calls a small 4-bet in the small blind quickly, I don't think he has anything. I can completely reasonably have kings, aces, queens, ace-queen, and he's just going to see that that's true, and, you know, eventually he'll fold, even if he doesn't fold straight away. So it just becomes an absurdly profitable spot for me, basically what I'm saying. And this example is a good reason of why you shouldn't be calling with something like 8s out of position against a 3-bet, because you're setting yourself up for the exact same sort of thing. And when he does call the 3-bet, I'm sure he's thinking, like, if I make the nuts hand, I can make so much money against this guy. But in reality, I have king 7 offsuit. So for him to make a ton of money, I have to decide to bluff off my entire stack, which, you know, like I've been saying, I probably do a decent amount of the time. I might have given up after the turn here, actually. But if he, like, decides to go for a check raise or something, which is completely reasonable, and he may well do that, and it makes sense for him to do that if he's going to call out of position, well, that's me done with the hand with king high. Sorry, you're not getting any more money. So his play was just heavily losing. We're playing heads up against a guy who's got 0 VPIP after 6 hands, so it's going to be hard for him to make money against me folding every hand. It's a pretty profitable spot. I'm going to assume we're at like 40 minutes, yeah. I'm going to jump on more tables now. I think a c-bet with 5 high is pretty mandatory against a guy playing so tight. I expect him to fold a lot. Right, you guys ready? Things are about to get weird. I now have a pair. I'm just going to give it up. I expected him to fold so often on... Ooh, I think I have to bluff the river now, though. Okay. He saved me from that decision. Yeah, I expected him to fold a lot on the flop, and so when you expect someone to fold a lot on the flop, that means that, you know, betting the turn as a bluff is less exciting. They have less stuff to fold. This is the first time he's actually opened his button. In a more aggressive situation, I'd consider just 3-betting with the 9-4 suited. I don't think it's good against a good player, but against a bad player, 3-betting heads up is going to be good. Against a bad player who never opens heads up, it's not as good. So I'm going to be like probably 15 tabling, because that's how many tables I can sit on with my bankroll. I assume that I could get up to 16 tables had I not had to top up on any of the tables, but I'm pretty sure I topped up a bit throughout the session. Here I'm just going to call out of position with ace-6 suited. He's min-raising the button, which is like fine, but yeah. And I'm just going to let it go with that thingamajig. Yeah, I think min-raising the button is totally fine, but I don't think he should really be doing it against me, because I think I'm better at poker than he is. I think, well, ideally he would probably leave the table if we were going to talk about his GTO strategies. I'm going to call with jacks here because there's a fish already in the pot. It's a spot where I'd really encourage folding with jacks usually, but if I hit the jack, I think the fish makes it so I'm realistically actually getting enough money. Okay, so he just opened 8-5 suited and then never made a stab at the pot. Here I have obviously no hand, but I do have a backdoor flush draw. I expect him to fold a lot. And yeah, if club comes, I'll keep betting the turn. And I don't think against this player I will bet the river as well. I think an ace is too large a part of his range after he calls twice. Wow, okay, he needs to 3-bet that pre-flop, obviously. But apparently we're not going to. I'm not getting many hands to really play with over here. Should maybe not be on short-handed tables if I'm going to play heads up and 16 tables at once. But anyway. Here's a spot where I'm actually just going to fold sevens. I just don't think there's any good line with it. I don't think calling out of position is extremely profitable. I'm not really sure that it's profitable at all. I guess if I thought it was a little bit profitable, I'd call, huh? I don't think 3-betting here makes sense. I'm not in a situation where I can 5-bet all in over a 4-bet from him. He's not aggressive enough, so. Here we have mid-pair against a fishy-looking limper and a small blind complete. I'm just going to bet to try to take down the pot. Fold now. Two complete unknowns in the blinds, and I haven't seen either of them put lots of money in the pot yet, over 1 and 3 hands. Yeah, I think that stealing 100% in that situation of these stakes is going to be profitable. One thing you're going to likely see here as these short-handed tables start to fill up is that when short-handed tables fill up, they fill up with really juicy spots. We're a little deep, so I'm going to make the 3-bet a little more than pot here. Blind versus blind. And I think I can just call with king-queen. C-betting pretty big here with straight doors and flush draws. C-betting reasonably large here for 3-bet pot too, since we're a little deep and the board has a lot of pair plus draw sort of hands. Alright, probably dead here, but his stack was so short that the bet call I think was mandatory. Not dead, that's nice. Okay, that may have been an example of the short-handed tables filling up with really good spots. And here's another one, as this guy's making the min 3-bet on me, blind versus blind. I'm going to call here. Just, you know, it's not a very profitable spot. It's a bad call for the same reasons. I'm going to fold these because he's at 182. It's a bad call for the same reasons that my earlier opponent's call out of position on my small 4-bet was a bad call, but in that case, his 3-bet was so small that I think I can call. And also, he's a shorter stack, so if I do hit a king, I'm just planning to stack off. No probs. I don't have to worry about screwing myself over by just folding all the time post-flop, especially since the other guy is not very good. He's probably not going to punish me too much for that. 4,000. So we're at 10 tables right now, just so you guys know. Here's a spot where I think it's pretty important to just jam. With ace-king, I just sort of want that guy to fold. And I'm never raising and folding here. So yeah, I managed to triple up with ace-king there, while only having to beat one player in the pot. And it's not a situation where it's like my ace-king is almost certainly not good unimproved, I'm going to have to hit an ace, in which case you'd sort of like a three-way pot with ace-king, to some extent. It's a situation where my ace-king could very easily be good unimproved against that guy's hand. This guy's donking into me very small, and I just have so much good stuff going on that I want to continue with the hand, and I'm actually going to raise here. I think it's a little bit better with this exact hand than just calling would have been. Now that I have top pair, I'm just going to call though. And now my hand is again completely different. Now I have a fourth nut flush. I think, again, just calling the standard. Wow, we we brutalized him. Well played, opponent. I think if he's gonna donk with, you know, top set or whatever, when I raise he should probably 3-bet and get the money in. Here I check back because I have the nut nothing, the nut high hand. I'm going to check back the turn as well, and then, okay, not anymore. I don't think. Like, I can bluff here, try to make him fold sevens or something, because when he checks a bunch, it's fairly likely he has a showdownable hand. Honestly, I'd probably call if he bet, but feel like bluffing when he checks, because I think he bluffs. If he has nothing, I should have probably bet bigger on the turn with nines in this hand down here. Yeah, like he has nines. I just didn't really believe he was folding the river there when the king came. Like, if a queen comes, well, obviously that hits me. But, I guess all the Broadway cards hit me. Even if the king doesn't come, so there's one more king left in the deck, it's a little bit more appealing to bluff. But when the king pairs, you know, there's just that little bit less value that I can represent, so I think it's a decent card to choose not to bluff on. You don't want to bluff every single time you're in a situation like that. Complete unknown with 40 big blinds, and I have 2 overs and a gut shot. I missed my backdoor flush draw, but I think I don't have enough behind to make him fold the river. If he has a 9 or something, so I'm just going to give up. And he gave me a free card on the turn, which was extremely kind of him. I didn't expect to get a free card there when I gave up, but obviously if your opponent's going to give you a free card while you have a ton of equity, then checking becomes even more appealing. Alright, so how long is this? 53? We didn't actually get up to 16 tables at all. I've been playing 10 tables. But you sort of start to get the feel for what it looks like. I'm just going to call with queens here. He's only raising very rarely. Very passive, fishy player. Yeah, you get an idea of what 10 tabling looks like, and you can extrapolate that to 16 tabling, and it would be pretty normal for me to play 24 tables. So do the math on that. A weird card. Very weird card. I think I have top set, but my hand got worse. I think a bet fold is in order. I think. So I would have bet bigger had I not been planning to bet fold, but what? Hold on, guys. Well, my play was not good. I was meant to bet bigger, very clearly. Does he think he has a straight? I find that hard to believe. Does he think he has a flush? Maybe? I don't know, man. I can't explain that one. So yeah, I want to wind this up now. Hope you guys enjoyed. I feel like we got into some pretty deep stuff. I'm going to fish tag this guy. Sometimes you get to fish tag guys who are too tight. That's exciting. He may end up just being dealt poor hands and become more normal, but until then. 2 overs, backdoor flush draw, a guy with all sorts of hands. I think a C-bet's in order even on this very coordinated board. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I feel like we got into some pretty good stuff, and I will see you in probably a little while for 25 cent, 50 cent. I want to get my bankroll up a little bit higher before I'm playing there, and that'll probably take me a couple of days, and then I'd sort of like to play for a few days there before I make a video, just so that I have, some information about the players. I think it makes the hand discussion a little bit more exciting. So yeah, I'll see you then.